Welcome to Wintentional Live, the Own It series with me, Olivia Denton Thomas, the brand counselor, helping you go from hustling to wholeness with brand strategy, and my darling friend, Tony Moore Esquire. Hey, Tony.
Hey,
How are you this beautiful Monday?
all is well for the most part. Some of my clients, I'm just praying for them. Let's just say that. Some of them, I just got to always serve as a reminder. Some of them, they going to soon find out that it's a difference between a transactional lawyer and a lawyer on retainer. I think they got a little spoiled.
That is a very real point. Like the relationship is very different. Okay. Okay. But you be serving the people. You stay serving the people and giving them a little bit more than they paid for. And I hope they put you on retainer. And I hope the ones that have you on retainer keep you there because you are an advocate for real.
Yes,
I love
really.
it. Okay, so we are coming to the end of our series, and today we are talking about being built to last. We've talked about getting rid of your corporate identity and making sure you own your stuff. We've talked about IP, trademarks, and claiming your intellectual property for real and not letting it just float in the wind because you have an idea doesn't mean that you own the idea or the rights to said idea. And then we talked about the idea that having structure is actually freedom. It allows you to grow properly. And we even talked about the Rockefeller habits of making sure that you're connected to the work, you're consistent, like I'm going to get the book seriously. So now we're in the section about being built to last. Um we're talking about legacy, we're talking about funding, something that goes beyond yourself. And I love talking to you about these things because you are a business lawyer but you're also an estate lawyer. So you make sure that the things that people have get handed down or across properly,
Hmm.
because I think people want to hand things down all the time, but sometimes your kids don't actually want it and you have to hand it across. um which is cool. So I see a lot of people, a lot of founders, think about their personal reputation, um but like legally and financially, when an investor, a bank, or a buyer looks at the
Hmm.
company, right? um what what makes it more than a personality driven practice and turns it into like an asset that's really a measurable enterprise?
Hmm. Hmm. For the most part, it's like buy sell agreements is more about assets, right?
Yeah.
So when you're building out something, a business, and not just doing the work, because so many of us got so used to doing the work, we can do the work. Sweat equity is in our spirit and our experience as African Americans and women. It's inbred in our DNA that we always have to work for the folks, work for our worth, even though we've been fearfully and wonderfully made, but we're still working for the worth. You know what I mean? So we're not always thinking about building something and making an asset, or even looking at the revenue that's generated, or even with regards to identifying who our clientele is and the next set of clients that we can then sell this to. Like package it so well. We were talking about how we can package something and
Mhm.
then turn that into an asset where we can always assess and evaluate. And
Yeah.
that's really what we're trying to do with regards to it, with regards to having something, an assets that is packaged so well that now you can be like, oh, I can buy it, I can trade it, I could sell it, I could use it as collateral. And for the most part, I'm to the point where I just tell people to like treat their business as a brand,
Mhm.
because every brand, every business doesn't necessarily have a brand, but if you don't have a brand, then it's personality driven and it's attached to you. When
Yeah.
you turn your business into a brand, then it's something that you can assess and evaluate. You can see like who else you can utilize this with, maybe have a joint venture partnership arrangement with regards to it, and with regards to like the due diligence. Is there ownership related? Is there equity related? What's the revenue related? What's the market share ratio? Like, most of us are so busy doing the work, working, what is it, working in the business, that we don't treat the business as a business that we continually work on. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we see it when it comes to succession planning, when
Yeah.
individuals have their children, and their children, they're not doctors and lawyers, they're not brand counselors, they're not doing anything that we do, and most of the time we don't require it of them, because maybe we were raised to be stringent, you know what I mean, where they pulled us as opposed to reared us, you know what I mean. So we're like, oh, it don't take all that. I'm at my latter stage. I'm like, man, maybe it took a little bit more than me just allowing them to just figure it out. It took
Yeah.
a little something, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to selling the business, or even selling the business more so than passing it on, because passing it on, if it wasn't a brand in the beginning, and it
Mm.
was literally sweat equity personality driven, once the celebrity, i.e. you, the celebrity, is gone, unless it's got attachments to certain things or long standing contracts, once you, the celebrity, is gone, that business is almost like a brand new car leaving the lot of a dealership. That equity goes down.
Down, down, down. I was just speaking to a group this morning about that essentially. Like, you can't just make the business about yourself. Like, you have to have a mission that's bigger than the business. And I mean, like, the
Mm-hmm.
mission can be personally driven, of course, but even that's not
Mm-hmm.
about you. That is about what the business is going to bring out into the world, even when you're gone, because the business is now adopting your mission, right? Like, it's not that it becomes your personality. It's that you're giving
Mm-hmm.
yourself to something enough. You're giving the mission to something enough that it can be carried outside of you. And it's just, I feel like people tend to get scared at that concept because they wonder if they're making, I think people are always trying to feel relevant, and they're always wondering if they're making themselves irrelevant, when it's like, it's your business. Like, how can you be irrelevant? But
Mm-hmm.
you know, at the end of the day, we're supposed to create brand identities that command trust in the market. And it's
Yeah.
not about any individual that is within the organization, including the founder. Because if it's all wrapped around the founder, it becomes unstable. Like, you can't do anything with it in the long run because you are the magic and you haven't translated that to other people. And that matters.
Yeah, it's a catch 22. Like, as we're talking, I'm like, well, what comes first? The
Mm,
brand, the business brand, or the personality brand? I'm always
that's a,
thinking the personality brand. Which one do you think?
I think I think the personality brand comes first. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's kind of no way to get to the business brand until you've even determined what the personality brand is, so that you
Mm-hmm.
can then capture it and codify it. That's where
Mm.
people don't actually do the work. Like, the capturing it, people are like, "Oh, this is just who I am." And that sounds great and it sounds magical, but it's not transferable. So until
Mm-hmm.
it's transferable, it doesn't actually have any value. So yeah, it's personality, of course, and not even personality as much as direction. Like,
Okay.
yeah, like, it's getting its like energy from you, of course, but it's getting its direction from you, really. So your mission, your vision, your values, like,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things need to be in place. And then we can get into like your voice and, like, how we pop out in the world. Right now, my personality for the brand is whimsy. My glasses are pink, right? Like, my whole everything is pretty neon colored. Um, but like, what does any of that matter if I can't say what my mission is? And then whoever I hire can also carry that mission, and so on and so forth. So the personality is great, but making sure you can talk about how to transfer it to another person,
Mhm.
like, is when it becomes a uniform. If
Mhm.
it's just
Mhm.
you, it's you in an outfit. But if it's a
Yes.
bunch of people, it is a uniform. And I mean, that's how I think that's how it becomes more than a commodity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause yeah.
Difference. You're always like, what's the difference that you bring to the table? And when I heard that years ago, especially when
Hmm.
we're talking about like building something to last, you have to figure out what's the difference that you bring to the table, you know? Because people are like,
Yes.
I'm a lawyer and I do good work. I'm sure there's a 10, 20, 30,000 other lawyers who are lawyers and do good work. Be like, what's the difference? I was like, well, one, I do like working with founding CEOs
Mm,
who are multifaceted, such as myself. And
yeah.
ideally, most of those tend to be in the nonprofit and the for profit sector. So if I'm
Hmm.
helping multifaceted founding CEOs, you know what I mean, utilize the law to
Yeah.
build and protect their business, their brand, their mission, their voice, so that they can build a business that outlives them and build a brand and a legacy. Because what I got tired of as a former divorce lawyer who did trial work, well, actually I was a trial lawyer, and someone scooped me into family law practice, which I said I would never do. But I was a trial lawyer doing toxic tort, and she was leaving the law firm, so she asked me to do this family law thing for her,
Yeah.
and that opened the door because before I was never going to do that. I was doing toxic litigation, um, which I hated, and so the more I start doing it, the more I start realizing that most people that look like us, we are not necessarily gravitating to learn the law. And
Mm,
some clients are like, "Oh, I'm not trying to learn this. You need to learn it enough so you can be articulate. You don't
hmm.
just want paper, want a plan and an action plan, and you want to be able to articulate why you're doing X, a copyright as opposed to a trademark, as opposed to, you know what I mean, a trust, as opposed to leveraging a full out merger and acquisition versus a buy sell. Otherwise, you're going to get played in business. So that's why I wanted us to be legally fluent so you can understand, not to the point where you be like, oh, according to section 7779911. So that's what my difference maker is that I already know what the end's going to be, and that you're either going to have to buy it or you're going to have to sell it, or at the end of the day, your family members or your beneficiaries are going to fight over it, especially if you don't think of it as legacy. I told someone, I said, sometimes we got to think legacy first. Like at the end of the day, when I'm 99 years old, what did that look like? What decisions did I make or should have made? And most lawyers aren't saying think legacy first as you build a brand or as you build a business, because we know that most people stumble upon business. Now, me personally, I always wanted to be a business woman.
Mm,
So I was going to make this work. This is my fifth iteration. I didn't stumble because I needed to pay my mortgage. I had six figures. You know what I mean? Even though Uncle Sam ate a half of it. So,
yep.
in Texas. So I wasn't one of those that was only making $29,300, as most black and brown people are in entrepreneurship. They doing all this work. And as opposed to saying, let me see what this looks like. What does this look
Mm,
like as a business? Now, if you is what does this service look like? I was talking to a group, and I helped them formulate, package their brilliance into like an offer that they know at minimum they can probably get 500,000, even at minimum 250 on up
hmm.
for buy-ins into this partnership arrangement. And I said, so I gave you the build out. Okay. I give you the bylaws. I give you the committee, the bylaw amendments, committee statements, pretty much like a template for your pitch deck. I
Hmm.
was like, I already ideated what you needed for the sponsorship. been there, done that with multiple other clients. So this is not new to me. It's already who I am. I said, but right now I have delivered the paperwork. Your
Mm,
your part is to pick it up and turn this into a game plan.
yeah.
And we're like, oh, we're going to ask for this money. People ask for money all the time. Nonprofits, you already know how to ask and beg for money. I was like, but when you find yourself as a partner, you're partnering for millions. So you
Yeah.
can make change possible. So when you get that person and you have your pitch deck, not your booklet that we're going to copyright, but a pitch deck, and what the promise is, what is the next step when they
Mm,
give you the money? I thought, your homework is to pretend like somebody is about to wire you $500,000.
yeah.
What are you going to deliver? Because most of us, we never have to think about that on the corporate side. When I was working at law firms, I never had to think about if somebody gave me $500,000. All I had to do was just do what was assigned, or as my one girlfriend said, everybody got their row to hoe. Well, now we own the plantation.
Yep. Yep.
So what are we going to do now that we don't have to just serve the table or clean the bathrooms or type up the report or reorganize? Now we are everything. We are the mastermind, and now
Yeah.
we're putting the people and the pieces together. That's the ownership shift that people have to make.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I find that a lot of people, especially coming out of corporate, very much struggle with that, because they're used to one thing that I've heard is I'm not gonna beg when thinking about sales or creating partnerships or things of that sort. And it's like, well, no, when you were in your corporate job, you didn't sell. You just did a thing, but somebody else had to sell in order for you to do that thing. So while you are used to being a technician, um, you have to also be a seller. You have to also be a visionary. You have to also think about, well, if that 500,000 hits my account, what happens next? Because that's how things grow. Otherwise, everything stagnates. Like you don't get to just operate in the thing that you're good at when you are
Yes.
a founder or a
And,
grower.
and we're good at looking good. I was an American history major at the University of Pennsylvania, and my ancestors in slavery, they knew how to peacock, how they look good. We know how to do that. We know how to show up. We know how to fake it to make it. But when it comes to
Yeah.
taking ownership to build something out, that is the true meaning of legacy, because someone in the family has to build it, and not just
Man.
build it, because a lot of people start it. They
Yeah.
start it, they make money from it, they get revenue from it, but they don't set it on a firm foundation.
Mm, mm. I love
That's
that.
the
I love
part.
that.
That's, because we already know how to do the work,
Yeah.
especially when you've been corporatized. Now, the corporatized is like a double entendre in that it's a blessing and a curse, because sometimes you've been corporatized so much that someone has stripped you of your uniqueness
Mhm.
and your ability to think on the spot, because all we did was the same thing over and over again.
Mhm.
Depending, you start building out a team, a little more independence, not having to worry about someone trying to like rip you a new one. Then you get a little more autonomy. But also, what you said, we have to play different roles, because when I first came out, I'm not
Yeah.
begging for nothing. But when you have a mission, like I want to help more founding CEOs, secure and build and protect a business that actually is going to outlive them, or at least something that they could sell. Look,
Yeah.
you see my face? Say it. Because I have people now, they buying and selling, but I'm like, you buying and selling a business without a trademark, without a phone number, without property, without an address, I don't know if it's a business or it's, only because it's still connected to someone's personality.
Yeah. Yeah. That's perfect because the next question is, what are the blind spots that brilliant, seven-figure founders are missing that make them unfundable or unsellable?
Oh, I mean, I just said it. You know what I mean? They don't necessarily appreciate the, like, if they know one of the biggest blind spots I know, they because that it all works together.
Yeah.
All of it. You get access to capital, but you got an SBA loan that is more than your revenue in the past 3 quarters. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That is a blind spot because we get access to funding, but that access to funding without a plan will mess you up. It'll mess up
Yeah.
your funds. Not only that, but I was talking to this business coach. She tells her people to sit with a brand for at least a year before they secure it. I said, oh, well, in the United States, it's the person who files the trademark application first who gets the respect of the United States Patent and Trademark Office unless it goes into litigation. Then
Mhm.
you got to fight it out. I have a client, she created something. Someone filed her trademark 3 weeks before her. Now we get an email, and it's, well, my client got a cease and desist letter. I just found out about it like a month ago
Oh no.
almost. And the person had an attorney, and the attorney is like, stop using XYZ. And I'm like, wow. I was like, you might want to send to the attorney a copy of the cease and desist letter that you sent to their client. I said, because adding 2 letters before a word and 1 letter after it does not change the dynamics of a word. It
Yeah.
doesn't change the dynamics of a brand. But because my client, as soon as her friends told her, you need to secure that brand, you need to file a trademark application. And sometimes people want to skip the legal until, for whatever reason, and a lot of people do. Oh, it's too expensive. I don't care if it costs $2,000. Her lawsuit is going to cost more than the original trademark application, even if she filed it herself,
Mhm.
just to protect something. Because what I told the client before I even found out about the cease and desist was that the fact of the matter is the other person filed first. Now, I saw the allegations on both sides. So my
Yeah.
client clearly has the priority claim. She's got to defend herself as a litigant on the defensive side because the other person's trademark application won. We got the notice. Oh, there's already a similar brand that has been filed. My client was like, we could have filed in a different area. No, because that's not what you do. And y'all names is so, as a brand counselor, that's almost like instead of Tony Moore, it's Latony Moore.
That's hilarious.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay.
So Latony Moore contacts Tony Moore and says cease and desist on this brand. But Latony Moore only found out about the Tony Moore brand because Latony Moore took the class of Tony Moore and then decided, oh, I'm going to trademark this. And what people don't understand in this electronic world is Facebook leaves footprints. So we saw when you changed the name, and it was after you took this woman's class.
That's
But we
crazy.
won't get that out. Yeah, we won't get that out until there's litigation, and litigation costs. But when people really start not thinking about, like, oh, I'm gonna file a trademark, I'm gonna trademark brand, that's good. But I always say, when you're filing a trademark, that's only because you have visualized the money and the prestige and the reputation and the goodwill, and maybe visualize this as an asset in your own family legacy,
Mhm.
with regards to the receipts. Now you're not thinking, oh, it's just a name. Somebody can take it. No. I used to sell mutual funds, and I tell people all the time, I make more money off of the Legal Diva brand that has a trademark than I did in any of the mutual funds that I ever operated in. Because
That's
the mutual
awesome.
funds, I still had to worry about other people's money,
Yeah.
with regard to the ebbs, the flows, and the mutual fund was consolidated with all the other stuff, and then they have their own set of operating expenses, and then it's the net proceeds of the net. Your girl is really smart with regards to it, but I was like, instead of dealing with brands and mutual funds, that's all good and dandy, but start thinking about that on your own side and be like, oh, what can I do with the brand counselor? Not I am the brand counselor, but how can I
Yeah.
teach other people brand counselors? How can I set up a proprietary framework so then now I can license it and maybe help individuals, maybe help school districts, maybe help business schools, with regards to that, you know? See,
I
most of
love
us
it.
are still, as we said, we start as a personality, but eventually you got to package that so that it's no longer about sweat equity, but now it's about owner's equity.
Ugh, I love it. And I know you're talking directly to me. You're like, girl, licensing is in your future. And I agree. You're right.
Yeah.
Licensing is in my future. So I received that completely personally, frankly. Yeah, the idea that you should wait a year, I never tell anybody that. I tell like, and I think that's a miscommunication because it's like if you have a business practice for a year, that's different than if you have a brand for a year. And obviously, well, not obviously. Let me not say obviously. One of the reasons I like to work with people who are a little bit more established is
Mm-hmm.
because in their business, let me say it that way, is because they haven't really thought about the packaging of the thing. And by the time they get to the conversation of packaging a thing, immediately I'm like, no, no, this has to be trademarked. We've seen that it works.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the logic that the person probably had in like keep your thing for a year was one, seeing if it works, and two, creating enough evidence for it. We see that it works. Like file the trademark, create the evidence. Like
Yes.
that's it.
Yes.
Don't wait. I'm actually about to encourage a client to do that right now because we started a media network under her business, and I'm like, so we need to protect this because it's
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm excited for her. So, oh, I love this conversation so much. Um,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it's so good because we don't we as a people, we as black people, we as black women don't necessarily talk nearly enough about ownership. Um, we borrow things or we give things away. We are way more likely to give things away and then like be happy to borrow someone else's trademarked thing and say like, "Oh, I'm a part of this group. I'm a John Maxwell trainer." Or
Mm-hmm.
like I'm a
Mm-hmm.
this or I'm a that instead of being like, well, no, I can actually create a thing and license it. Like you are that girl. Frankly, those people got their information from people that look like you anyway. But we can talk about that another time. Um,
Yep. Somebody said true that, with
mm,
regards to it. But it's a shift. And if we are, if we are the generation that the building generation, you
mm,
know, it's already been in our spirit. Some people, I remember she passed away, Miss Tracy did real estate in Philadelphia, but
mm,
it was a panel discussion. A lot of us came from, such as myself, trauma, right? And she's like, I didn't come through trauma. I didn't grow through trauma. She's like, because my father had already started his own real estate business.
mm,
So he had already built something. And then he was able to spoon feed her, position her, teach her. So it allowed her not to be tiptoeing in stilettos trying to figure it out or finding themselves, well, is this a good brand or is that a good brand, is this a good offer, that's a good offer, with regards to it. And so she was then able to be not just be fruitful but multiply, you know,
That part.
what she was doing. Um, and I was like, I want to be like that. I said, but I'm not ever going to denigrate someone who came from trauma. I said, because sometimes you got to try, and somebody in your bloodline has to do the work.
Yeah.
I did not get an inheritance, but
Yeah.
I'm leaving a blueprint.
That part. That part.
Okay. I did not get an inheritance, but I'm definitely leaving a blueprint. And in the beginning, it was like taking on what I learned from, you know, put it like this. When I was in the projects, they wasn't talking legacy, but a lot of our mamas thought that we was going to replace them.
Mm.
That's legacy.
Yeah.
When I went to the University of Penn from the projects, I met people whose parents literally had created a blueprint and their
Yeah.
grandparents had created a blueprint. So they were expected to take the seat at the family wealth building table. You know what I mean? With regards to it, meet the family planners, meet the family lawyers, meet the family marketers. You know what I mean? And then they even have their own. Like one of my friends, I was talking to them and she said, oh, yeah, you didn't know this, but XYZ, who you met through me, her family had a family office because her father created software that a big, huge company bought for $250 million. That
Yep.
is creating that is creating a blueprint, and that is changing the trajectory. Most of us are not thinking that, because that, I mean, he created software. That means he used his IP, his
Yeah.
intellectual property, something that was already intellectually packaged inside of him. And I remember even Russell Brunson. Now, this is years later because I graduated in 1994 from the University of Pennsylvania, 98 from law school. So it's been a minute. But Russell Brunson had recently told in a group with regards to if you have a how,
Mm.
if you have a proprietary framework, that's your how. See, most people, they don't codify what they know. That's what limits their cash flow. But if you codify what you know, you can even go to Lovable and use all the AIs, you know, with Chat GPT and say, hey, help me create a software framework based on what I know to do or I usually do with all of my clients to do XYZ. Like how I I'd be like, how to flip this trademark into a trust fund asset. Boom. How to turn this business into like a $250,000 revenue. Boom. How to do whatever you the how you ask the chat GPT, how do I talk to Lovable, your cousin, so I can create an app, you know, so that people can now do X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
Most of us are missing out on that because I was I was not a STEM person. You said science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I was like, oh, super smart. Yeah. But when it comes to STEM, but when someone told me I could do vibe coding, vibe coding, what's that tone? Just talk to the computer. She can do that.
She
So
can.
when Russell Brunson said with our how, you turn that how into a framework, you turn that framework into software.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're making money while you sleep. Now you have an asset. Now it's not just you saying, oh, I'm going to do XYZ. No, I have a proprietary framework.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
remember in Silicon Valley, you know, education, online education, that's a business asset that is investable. How do I know that? Because another fellow attorney created called something called Rebel something. It was Rebel something or whatever. Class Rebel. ClassRebel. Class Rebel.
Love it.
She used to help people with regards to Lululemon get their first money when they were going out into the marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so she learned. I had an interview with this guy who I met through one of my trademark clients who does a lot of financial coaching. She's like, oh, you should talk to this guy. I'm telling him about how this woman shifted my whole life. First of all, I was talking about Osceola McCarty, a black woman who turned
Mm.
laundry into legacy. by creating something that she can pass down called an endowment. And I was like, and then I learned about this other woman, Brooke, who created Class Rebel, who then turned her intellectual property into an online training that she sells, i.e., pitches to Google. Can you imagine pitching a class to Google and only charging $97 a user? That's good money. That's changing the bloodline money based on what you know. So when they're listening on building something for firm foundation built to last,
Mm.
it's not enough to create something to pay your light bill
No,
or the mortgage.
no.
It's something that you're like, how can I get the biggest company who's got 10,000 users? What can I train them to do that I can sell? You ain't begging for dollars. You
Mm.
are pitching your professional services
Yeah.
that you packaged into a framework that now you can use as a consulting or a one-on-one or a license to access your proprietary framework that you have created into a software program. So
Yeah.
now you don't have to always try to be the one teaching or preaching or reaching or counseling. No, now your information is now packaged into something that you can be fruitful and multiply.
I love it.
That's building something to last.
I love it. I love it. I feel like I don't even have to ask this next question. Um, I feel like I don't even need to really ask it because I mean the premise of it is we want to be irreplaceable, right? Like at the end of the day, we want to build a brand that is irreplaceable, but we ourselves need to be replaceable within the system. Um, and the question was, what does it look like to make the founder completely replaceable, like optional, while the brand itself is irreplaceable? And I mean, you pretty much answered it, right? Where the question is, how do you package properly in a way where you don't even need to be in the room? You can just sell it. Like at this point, we can vibe code. I actually vibe coded a few things last night because I had to work on a client's website, which I don't do. I don't like doing web design. I used to back in the day with like WordPress and like templates and CSS, but I'm not a coder. I failed that class. God bless Dr. Hidell for having me in his office every week, right? But last night I was talking to Claude and I figured out how to copy and paste the HTML, right? And that's it. But it goes so far beyond even being able to provide a service for somebody else, like you're saying. It is, well, how do you package your information in a way where other people can utilize it as a tool over and over again? Because $97 per user at Google is crazy. Google's huge. That's huge. Like, how do you, I don't know. So, like, people need to get out of their own way. What do you think it is that makes them, no, it's not the what, it's the how. How do you think they need to begin to think in order to get themselves out of their own way? Because I know what it is, right? It is the usable mentality. We want to be usable. We want people to see our value through our usage. But like,
Mm,
how do we start moving in a way where we encourage ourselves and we change our mindsets around around ownership?
mhm. That well, the changing of the mind around ownership really is with regard to it's almost it's almost like being made over. You got to
Yeah.
make over your mind with
Yeah.
regards to it. Like make over your mind that you're no longer employee to CEO, chief everything officer. Right now, I'm the chief everything officer
Yeah.
with regards to building out a financial legacy. Like
Mm.
I'm being very clear. Like some people are like, oh, you're a lawyer, it's illegal. In my world, everything is legal. Because if it's not legal, it's a liability. If you ain't legalized it, you don't have the paperwork, you don't have the documents right. People do their do-it-yourself trademark or do-it-yourself trust, and someone was like, "Yeah, I created a trust, and I had three trustees, all related." I said, "How's that going to work out if y'all don't agree?"
Yeah, that doesn't sound good.
I was like, "Do y'all have like an IF, an independent fiduciary, who can step in? Did you put that in the language?" "Oh, I didn't think of that. I just decided to just give them something." I said, "See, that's the difference, because there's a lot of people who want to show up as scriveners. Do it yourself people want to show up as scriveners. Financial planners want to show up as scriveners. Claude, at one time I played around with ChatGPT a few years ago about a trust fund. I was like, help me create a trust. It was like, next day on it is not. I can't do it now because my doing, they know, they were like, well, we're going to do it like we do with sponsorships, or we're going to do it a little differently. You know what I mean? But there's so many people who I pretty much are like, when I first got started even doing financial investigations,
Hmm.
I only knew what I knew from law school, or what I knew from reading case law.
Yeah.
But when I started realizing that people were liars and deceivers, and there were different ways that people will leverage different investments, and then how people would then use that investment and camouflage other things, or even like, not for nothing, but even this president right now, he's trying to package, cryptocurrency into something that he can then use or force people to put into other people's retirement plans,
Yep.
even though there is no promise. So the packaging, people have learned how to do that. What we have to do is separate ourselves. Like, we're not going to separate who we are from what we do, but we have to commodify your mind, and that, okay, this is what I do on nonprofit side, and this is what I do on estate side, this is what I do on business side. Like, literally being able to compartmentalize it, and it's not
Yeah.
just making it about you. It's about the service that you offer. So if you put yourself in the center and then be like an octopus, you know what I mean? Have like different sprouts. How do I get the service from you? Now it's not near and dear, because most of us have not commodified our mind. Most of us have
Yeah.
not thought of ourselves as the CEO, the chief everything officer. When I break that down into you, your ecosystem, yes, you are the center. Okay. But what can I get from your intellectual property properly without you getting sued? How do you package it? Who can you help? Now pick the top three, and now pick the one moneymaker, getting on for that.
Yeah.
Now it's not about one thing that you do because you picked one out of the eight.
Yeah.
So it's no longer about, it's not my alter ego. See, most of us, when you're still attached to the alter ego, like, I will pitch a business, I'll pitch I pitch trademark services, I pitch buy sell agreements. I had a client, he had negotiated, a buy sell agreement. I said, oh well, did you do the LOI? Just testing them. He was like, no. I said, all right, I'm gonna help you out with this. And then he said, well, you said something about the due diligence. I sent him over an invoice. You want all of that? Because not only that, but he sent it with me and CC somebody else to try to hold me accountable, not for free, boo boo. So I was like, here's the invoice. He didn't pay the invoice. You think I went back? He know what the price is.
No. Like, hold you
But
accountable to what?
sometimes, yeah, well, sometimes people be like, because he wanted to know, because there is a sale, a pending sale. But like I told him, I didn't get hired for that. I got hired for this. So now I have no problem setting boundaries.
Mm,
When we are trying to please all, that's the end of all. That's going to be the end of you and your business, because people will
yeah.
run you. They will play. Business is a game. You got to set boundaries around who you are, what you serve, what you bring to the table. So, like I told my one client, where she literally has a big time nonprofit, but she's birthing out a new area, silo, if you will,
Mhm.
in the business. I said, you're still treating it like it's an alter ego. It's not.
Mm,
I said, you got to make sure that you understand you gave birth to another opportunity for people to work with you.
Mm,
I said,
mm.
so right now it could be cloaked in the family home as a fiscal sponsorship. Here's the agreement. I mean, she paid for the service, it wasn't free. I was like, but you have to stop treating it like it's this and or that. No, no, no. You got 2 children now. And I was like, one child gets a chance to hang out with the famous child, yes, but you still got to carve out this other child to let it be its own identity.
Yeah.
Most of us are not carving out our brilliance so that it can be a commodity. No, I don't want to be a commodity. You need to be something.
You need to be
You're going to
something.
be a big, yeah, Big Mac, filet of fish quarter. You can be a service provider, but you can take yourself off of the table. You don't have to be the sole server. Even Russell Brunson was like, if you got the how, you got at least the minimum for at least a minimal valuable product MVP
Yeah.
that you can at least start marketing because
Yeah.
now because you commodified that mind what we do so well. You got to reverse engineer for more revenue. Reverse engineer what you do. Write it out.
I love it. Yeah. 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 Put it on paper, write the vision, make it plain.
Because we don't know because we always keep doing it. You know, I'll never forget. I asked this one woman. She made the best yeast rolls. She passed away,
Mm.
and for me, I'm always thinking legacy, right? So I said, did you write down the recipe for your family? She said, no. When I die, I want everybody to miss me. And I said, that's the problem. There's a lot of us who want to be so important, but that's why each generation got to start over. Somebody got to take stewardship and ownership so that we can be good stewards with what God gave us so we can pass it down. Most of the time, our businesses become tag you're it. Then the people calling the lawyer's office talking about, well, where did they bank? Who were their clients? How much money is owed? How can I sell this?
You can't.
Unfortunately, there's someone, she had the good intentions. She was new.
Yeah.
She was good intentions to create her own real estate company. She was new. But when she passed away with no insurance, it didn't cover the mortgages. And when the
Okay.
family had to eject some of the tenants because some folks is raggedy, they didn't have the money to maintain the mortgage and legal services to eject tenants who will do whatever it takes not to pay you or your beneficiaries. So
Yikes.
it's not just to have a business. Anybody can have a business. Sometimes people like talk about folks when they get legal counsel to start a business. We're not helping you start a business. We're helping you create a game plan so that you
Yeah.
can protect and secure what's yours, not so you can get an EIN, so you can then get access to capital with no game plan on how to pay back that loan when it hits your pocket.
Man,
Most
that is
do not.
crazy.
You didn't get the blueprint. Nobody is mentoring us. That's why you got to pay for it. Now, sometimes people or be like, "Well, I'll go to SCORE." Go for it. Go to SCORE. You get what you pay for, not what you pray for.
That part. That part. My goodness. I feel like I am enriched. Frankly, I'm enriched every time I talk to you, but by this series in particular, I feel like I am certainly enriched. And I'm going to go through the recordings and see what else I might have missed, even sitting here, because the gems were dropping from the sky. Um, if there was one thing that you feel like you did not say to these founders, particularly founders who feel like they're already doing well, right?
Hmm.
The people that I like to call a successful mess. You might be making hundreds of thousands or even millions, but you're still kind of shaky. What is something you would want to give them as like the ultimate piece of advice?
I always ask my clients if they have a legacy continuity plan because the ones who are making it and they're making their money, most of
Mhm.
it's still in their head. Most of them
Yeah.
did not have a business legacy continuity plan.
Yeah.
In that, if they got sick or they didn't come back, or they ended up wanting to go over to Dubai for like 6 additional weeks, and you could say, go to, my business game plan on page 27 to 57, and it'll walk you through the process. That way, it's not about you. Most people, so I would ask, do you got that business continuity game plan? And that business continuity game plan, God forbid, if something you get sick or you pass away, then that becomes your legacy continuity game plan. So that's what I will always ask with regards to it. Because sometimes people know how to get the money, but
Yeah.
they don't know how to continue the business. And even when you hire people, if they still have to ask you, the business owner, the founding CEO, for the final determination before they can, make a decision, then you're still attached to it. And then
Yeah.
my question is, realize that you don't have instructions, you don't have directions, you don't even have a game plan that they can say AX plus BY equals continuity. Is
Yeah.
that all right with you? That's the question. You built everything, but you have no directions, no instructions, no game plan, no playbook. Is that all right with you?
Mm, that is good. That is good. Okay. Tony, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for all the ways you have shared both with this audience and with me. Um, I appreciate you. And again, like having you for a 4-part series, being able to like break down what it looks like to have ownership in the business um beyond the business, beyond the branding, into actually having a protected asset is a big deal. And I can't tell you how I just how I appreciate your insights and sharing with our community. Our community needs more of this information so we can do better for longer term. Um, so I appreciate you seriously. Where can we find you on the internet?
Well, I'm here. Allegedly, I was hoping not to be able to do this without coughing, but um,
You
and I'm
made
at
it through,
Tony the
frankly.
Lawyer. Yeah, right? Yeah, TonyTheLawyer.com, and that's where they'll run into the Legal Diva, which is my alter ego, um, on all social media, where I'm actually sharing the legal tips and things of that nature. Because I know, as a former educator who was also a former trial attorney, is that repetition is the mother, father, sister. And if you hear
Mm,
it enough times, it's something that's going to click in your spirit. And what I don't want is for anyone to learn about law in the middle of a lawsuit or litigation. Okay, because you're not going to be strategic, you're going to be in survivor mode, and there's so many blind spots when you're in survivor mode. You're just going to try to survive, and you might be like Esau and you give everything away for some soup just so you can get the peace.
well, when you say it that way, she said, "Give it all away for some soup." Amen. Desperation kills. You are correct. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Seriously. Everybody go to
Yes.
tonythelawyer.com. Let the legal diva like help you to build that foundation properly. And God willing, see you guys next week at the brand counselor. I can't wait to help you go from hustling to wholeness. In the meantime, stay intentional and keep flourishing. Bye, guys.